Okay, right on, man. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Modern Day Sniper podcast. I'm Kalen. I'm your host, and I'm bringing to you guys a new way of doing podcast episodes, at least for Modern Day Sniper. Um, what I'd like to do is be able to give you guys a different look and a different way of having information delivered to you. So, we're going to break up our podcasts into three distinct types in the coming future, and one of which is what you're seeing right now. And if you're listening and not watching, this podcast is just Kalen talking about the things that I'm seeing, that I'm witnessing, and that I'm experiencing as I navigate life as a precision rifle instructor full time. So, teaching classes all the time, we see a lot of different things. Our modern day rifleman network, we have a lot of different people that are coming through there, posting different things, talking about specific topics. And so this is just a way for me to talk to you guys about some things. And what spawned this was just doing a class debrief because I just got back from Virginia teaching for our fifth year at Pig River, which is pretty badass. And we're going strong. We already booked again for next year. We're going to get into that, but yeah, that's what this podcast episode is going to be all about. We're going to talk about some debrief points from Pig River. Let's see here. We're going to talk about some different gear that I've been using, and we're going to talk about Black Friday because that's coming up. We got some new stuff, new merchandise. You guys can see. If you can't see because you're not watching and you're listening, I've got some new hoodies and we're going to talk about that stuff. Our upcoming schedule, excuse me, which I know a lot of you guys are super pumped about. And we understand that we are kind of derelict on that right now. We're going to change that. And then future planning, what's going on with modern day sniper and what's happening in the future. So that's what this podcast is all about. And if you're one of those dudes with a super short attention span and you're just like, hey, man, give me the meat and potatoes, I want to make you guys aware before we get into the episode, we have Black Friday coming up. Everybody's doing Black Friday stuff. I get it. And it's part of this debrief and some things that I'm going to talk about from Pig River. You just simply cannot beat the master classes that we offer. They are the lowest barrier for entry into quality training that you can get to be as prepared as you possibly can be when you come visit an in-person class, if you ever so choose to do that. We have a lot of customers that simply rely on those master classes for their education, and then the Modern Day Rifleman Advantage program or Modern Day Sniper Monthly to augment them with up to date new information, classes, as well as training drills and shooting drills and things like that. But the master classes are all going to be 50% off during our Black Friday sale. So I'm super pumped about that. And we are going to be doing 15% off and free shipping from all of our merchandise. The range hoodies, our new hoodies with our new updated logo, some new t-shirts that I'm going to talk to you guys about. So yeah, it's all coming. So that's what we're doing this episode. You guys are going to hear directly from me. And let's start this thing off by talking about our Pig River debrief. So, Pig River debrief, fifth year. We did two classes this year. We did a modern precision rifle, which is our 4-day introductory level package. And then we did our 3-day competition advantage clinic, which is talking to people about getting into competitive shooting and just basically a roadmap as to how to navigate that. And so, starting off with our intro class, we had 8 guys coming in for our intro class in this one. And one of the main things that I noticed here was rifle performance, straight up. And I wanted to talk to you guys about some things to avoid. And it's might ruffle some feathers. I don't really care anymore because the thing that I dislike being is the bad guy. And what I mean by that is having to look at an individual and say, hey, the equipment that you brought to the course is not going to be up to snuff to what it is that you would like to get out of it. And that can be difficult, especially in challenging environments, switch wind conditions where targets are a little bit smaller and you're up against a wall when it comes to your equipment. And so that can really take the wind out of people's sails. And I want to make sure that you guys that are listening and or watching this, understand that I'm not throwing stones, but there's really things that you have to be paying attention to out there when you're spending your money. Um, Getting into long range shooting is definitely a buy once, cry once type of game. Well, we hope that it is. We all know though that going into this, you can be subjected to the marketing machine. And when you're subjected to the marketing machine and you get bit by it, there are these, too good to be true fairies floating around out there, right? And you're like, man, that's just too good to be true. Now, just take this with a grain of salt. Just understand that the rifle that you choose may not be up to standard once you actually get behind it and get shooting it and then compare it to other rifles that you're in class with. So that all goes into circle of components, right? That's the whole thing, right? That's what's making your shooting system what it is. And what we want you guys to do is understand that we do have the circle of components masterclass available to you. And one of the things that we got out of this class, one of our students, his name is Sean, he purchased the Circle of Components Masterclass as well as Fundamentals of Marksmanship Masterclass, and he was able to assemble his own rifle, mount his own scope, make sure that everything was set up properly and appropriately for him, so that when he came to class, he didn't really have to spend a whole lot of brain power doing that. He was able to just say, okay, these are the little tiny tweaks. I already got this kind of set up. I have a baseline understanding of what's being asked of me here. And he was able to be very successful with that. He actually came out the class high shooter at the end of our evaluation. He shot 86% of the available points. And he had tuned that to his equipment. He purchased an Altus barreled action, and he put that into an MDT chassis, and he mounted a Vortex, whatever generation it is now, Razor, onto it. And so he started off with good solid equipment and good reliable ammunition. He was shooting Hornady ammunition. So um, from that point of view, Sean was set up for success because he had already gotten the training from our master classes. And so that way he was only having to make tweaks. Whereas the individuals that had not yet been exposed to the master classes and or more modernized marksmanship mechanics, they struggled a little bit more because these concepts, although the curriculum is set up so that way it's there for a completely new shooter, you're just the experience because there is only so much that you can learn in 4 days. And I do believe that 4 days is an absolute minimum for new shooters to come in to the mix. Now, with that being said, the other shooters, they were not just ate up. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that there was a performance. There was definitely a performance difference between the spread of the class with regard to equipment and then prior knowledge and experience and training, which is what the master classes got them. So the other big thing that I saw in these classes is optics and simply familiarity with how your optic works, mainly being zero stops and how to zero your scope itself. The focus aspects of the scopes is no big deal. That's always really, really straightforward. We have an ocular focus and we have a target focus knob, and those are covered in depth in class. However, the things that I can't always be super up to speed on with every single scope manufacturer out there, they all work generally the same. However, there can be some very intricate nuances with each different brand of scope. So we had a couple of different scopes in class that had some really interesting zero stop aspects to them. So, and then we also had a scope stop tracking, and that was, I believe it was in. But you know what? Don't quote me on that because I know I'll set the internet on fire and I'll make everybody upset. That's what happened with the loophole post when I posted this real quick 15-second video of, hey guys, who do you think managed to clear the best? Oh my God, it literally set at least it set that post on fire. It turned into a dumpster fire. So I'm not gonna do that yet. Actually, no, you know what? I will. It was a primary arm scope. It was a primary arm scope. This shooter had decided that they were going to get into this and they were like, you know what? I'm going to shoot 200 yards. Fantastic. Right. So you got a Bergar rifle and the, um, that scope, whatever I just called it. I can't remember. primary arms. That's the one. And so, yeah, 200 yards, hitting a 2 MOA plate, no big deal, all whatever, right? But then we go from 100 doing our fundamental drills immediately out to 1,000 to validate trajectory. And that it was like a whoa. And we started to see the limitations of that platform, not only with that shooter. And I can't really expect a whole lot because people are learning. You're there to learn a new skill. And so the shooter's ability to hold tight groups is something that I'm monitoring very closely in the first day as we work through the fundamental drills. I'm monitoring each individual shooter and trying to identify any types of weapon equipment issues right off the bat so that way we can identify them really quick because the next day the curriculum just is going to continue to build. And it's not like you're not capable of it. You are going to be pushed, but it's more of a mental push than anything else because the size of the target is the same. The aiming point that you're shooting at is the same as it is at 100 yards, as it is at 1,000. So, like, don't think about it from that perspective. We tell students all the time, look, range is just a number. So don't even worry about that. So what we started to see was limitations, right? And then the scope started to misbehave. It just wasn't doing what it was told and it wasn't tracking appropriately. We had put inputs into it. It would not take those inputs. And then lo and behold, 4 or 5 shots later, all of a sudden it would take the input and move the erector system. So we elected to pull that scope. I used one of my spare optics that I brought with me. It was a Collis 525. And, we had no problems from that point forward. So the other aspect of that is understanding your scope's reticle system. That's super important. And it's really good to study that before you come to class because we are going to be using your reticles to hold for wind. We don't dial wind only under really, really specific circumstances. And that's not going to happen in an intro level class more often than not. So learning what your reticle is really important to be able to jump right in and talk about wind holds because I don't really like if I do an external ballistics class and I teach you how to set up your ballistic solver, I still got to teach you, hey, when I tell you to hold 7/10 to the left, this is what we got to do. It is that basic at first, and it needs to be that basic because I've learned from the past that if I overload students with a wind call class right off the bat, it doesn't end well because the knowledge isn't retained. The brain is already just swimming when there's so much stuff, right? So we don't do that. And so it really helps for students to have an understanding of what their reticle is. So if you're going to be showing up to a class, excuse me, pardon me. So if you're going to be showing up to a class, make sure that you understand how your optic works and how to set the zero and zero stops. That's super important. It's going to end up saving us a bunch of time. And if you have the ability to, make sure that you're looking into our master classes and or the Modern Day Rifleman Advantage program so that way you can get yourself as spun up as you can and to get the most out of the class. Don't we have a lot of people that show up to class very nervous. And what I mean by that is there's anxiety, meaning performance anxiety. Like, I don't want to be that guy, or I don't want to be the dude who takes up all the instructor's time. I don't want to be that guy. Well, guess what, man? When you show up to an in person training class, you're paying us for our time. You're paying us to help you and guide you. So the class is only as strong as the weakest link, and that goes in any situation no matter what. So the goal is to get everybody what they need so that way we can all function as a group. And it usually works out that way. Like 99% of the time, it works out that way. So, understanding your equipment, understanding your circle of components, how it all works is a real big leg up on the rest of the group if you have that knowledge coming into the class. So, now that was our intro class. We had a really rough weather day on day one. It rained so hard that it was really difficult to even keep targets sprayed onto the backers. So we did do a lot of stuff inside in the classroom, and every class is a little bit different based upon what it is that we have available to us. So the weather for the rest of the class was great after that, and we had some good winds that students were able to experience. and see winds that turned on, turned off, as well as winds that were shifting direction inside 30 degrees. And that was one of the big things that we showed students in that intro class as well is with regard to wind. Now, we all know that we have from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock and or 9 o'clock, that is 90 degrees on each side, making up 180. And then we look at it and we say, oh, well, each of those clock points is 30 degrees. When you see each of those clock points being 30 degrees, and then we start talking about wind values and percentages of the raw wind speed to the working wind speed, we're working in those increments of 50%, 90%, 100%, and 0% on the other end of the spectrum. Once you show someone what 30 degrees really is with regard to span, it really puts that value assignment into perspective. And when you're seeing wind shift, this is where I want to challenge people, and myself included. So if you can come off a stage and say the wind shifted on me or the wind dropped off on me, great. Can you shoot that entire stage on paper at 100 yards with 1.5 MOA circles and keep all of your bullets inside, I don't know, 3/4 of an MOA, right? Half the size of the target. Maybe plus that up a little bit more to 0.8 of a minute, right? To give you inside that third. So, because that's really what it takes fundamentally, as well as with your ballistic data to keep bullets in that cone. So that way your wind call actually does have an effect, meaning I can keep my wind call and my bullets in the center of the target, provided that I'm breaking clean shots and I'm a fundamentally sound shooter. The wind and the data is separate, right? So one of the things that we're going to start doing a lot in modern day rifleman advantage coming up is focusing on these really, really small nuances of the fundamentals on paper at 100 yards from all of the barricades and from all of the match isms that you're going to see. And if you can really do that, if you can really go through that entire stage and shoot whatever the round count is and keep all of those bullets inside that eighth to 3/4 MOA from the center, right? Then you might want to say that you got screwed with wind. You might be able to say that you got screwed with wind. But if you're running liners on those, right? If you're looking at that and you've got bullets on the edge of that 1.5 MOA, I don't know if you got screwed by the wind or not, man. That's something that you really have to be honest with yourself about. And so that's something that we discussed considerably in the intro class. And then we also discussed that considerably in the competition advantage class, which was a lot of fun. We had a good time in the competition advantage class. What was interesting here in the competition advantage class was we had two police officers, one of which was completely new to this whole aspect of shooting a bolt gun. Gone through, I want to say he went through the Hathcock School, the law enforcement sniper school, the Hathcock School. And he was talking to me about, what the curriculum entailed and what they covered and such. And that shooter showed up with a 16.5 inch extra international AT. No muzzle device, no nothing. The guy was shooting 168 grain Sierra Match Kings, and he was using a minute of angle scope. So that was an experience in itself for this individual, right? Brand new and showing up to a competition advantage clinic. And I got to tell you, this guy crushed it. He did a fantastic job. He was not utilizing his equipment as an excuse in any way, form, or another, which was awesome. He also didn't show up with any toxic aspects of ego. And I say the toxic aspects of ego because we're all going to look at this and be like, "Oh, you got to leave your ego at the door." It doesn't work that way. You don't leave your fucking ego anywhere. It goes with you wherever you go. Your job is to get in touch with your ego, understand how it works, understand how it drives and directs how you show up. That way you can manage your ego, right? So that's what this individual did. He did a fantastic job at that, and he stayed focused and he stayed really, really in tune with learning the entire time. Very, very attentive. Then we had another shooter that showed up with a personal rifle, a 6.5 Creedmoor, and that was a really well built system. And he had just gone through our law enforcement skills clinic with our law enforcement lead guy, Landon Jones, up in New Hampshire. And he said that he had a great time up there, and he said that it dramatically shifted, if not completely fundamentally shifted, his entire approach to marksmanship, which is exactly what we're trying to do. We want you to think differently. We want you to think in modernized marksmanship mechanics. And so we also had two former British Royal Marine snipers that are my peers in terms of time in service and the duration in service. So we had some good perspectives on how to run equipment and what guys had been taught in the past versus what modern marksmanship mechanics are today. And so there was a lot of discussion about, and it keeps rearing its ugly head. And this is kind of something that I've been wanting to discuss for a long time, and I've been struggling with how to discuss it without coming across in, a typical and or I guess old way of I'm not interested in throwing stones. And so there was a lot of talk about snipercraft and how snipercraft is still telling people, law enforcement snipers, that none of what these guys did over the course of those 3 days is going to make them a better shooter. And that's just something that I have a major, major problem with. And the reason that I have a major problem with it is it truly does retard the growth of that community by telling people, professionals, to avoid a specific aspect of their job that would potentially, well, not even potentially, would undoubtedly give them an edge on their ability to run that rifle. So, running a rifle in terms of being a sniper is 10% of your job, maybe, if that. However, when that need arises, that 10% of possibility now becomes 100% of your purpose. And you need to be able to run that rifle just as well as you can drive your car. You need to be able to run that rifle as an extension of you, and it's just a tool. It's just a tool that you're using to solve a problem, and you're using your mind as the actual weapon. You are the weapon. That is just a tool that you're utilizing to solve a problem. And I'm beating this like a dead horse because the fact of the matter is that you can crow all you want about how military snipers do not have a place teaching law enforcement snipers. However, I beg to differ, and here's why. When I first decided that I was going to be a sniper, that was the path that I wanted to pursue as a young boy, and I solidified that plan at 14 years old. And I did that as a result of reading a lot of books. I read as many books as I could possibly get my hands on, probably books that I don't know, probably shouldn't have read, but man, I was a child of the 80s and the 90s, right? So, hey, that's what it was. Um, at least I was not, burning shit down and causing all kinds of problems in town. I was a bookworm, but I was studying military, law enforcement, and professional aspects of rifle marksmanship. And so, one of the books that I read was actually I read both of his books. There's Mr. Bartlett's book from Snipercraft. And what I'm just gonna say is that, dude, you made me. Like you made me what I am. The books that I read were an inspiration to me. And even back then, I was able to separate the two. I was able to see that there were distinct differences between how military snipers operated as well as law enforcement snipers. Now, a lot of the material that I was given at that point in time, it was Vietnam era stuff. There wasn't a whole lot of sniping that was going on outside of that conflict that anybody had any information on, right? Especially Bosnia and all of that was just going on as I was getting out of high school. So from the perspective of military and law enforcement, um, yeah, man, like you gave me the inspiration to pursue that path. And now, you wrote that book relatively early on in your career, Mr. Bartlett, and um I've been doing this now for 25 years. And so what I'm going to tell you is that my experiences matter. As a professional in this space, having bounced between both organizations, now I'm not a law enforcement sniper. I've never claimed to be. However, you cannot simply just blanket that experience and say, well, military guys shouldn't be training law enforcement snipers. And this is where I beg to differ, because everybody's experience as a sniper is different with regard to how they operated and how they were trained in the military. And here's why. So the days of old of just like of running around and killing people, it's not how it works. Um, and furthermore, my combat deployment to Iraq involved more policing and enforcement of martial law than anything else, than any direct combat operations that I did. So, as a Marine sniper, if you have the benefit of being attached to an MSPF, which is a Maritime Special Purpose Force, and you're in the reconnaissance and surveillance element, which is the MSPF, you're going to be exposed to a lot of different skills that a regular infantry sniper is not necessarily going to get exposed to. Things like urban sniper school, urban reconnaissance and surveillance courses, and then all of the other qualification exercises that go along with validating your ability to not only retain but practically apply that knowledge and skill through all of the various um, SOC X's and Fleet X's and X's exercises that our units would have to go through to prove that we had the capability and capacity to run these missions and execute these missions. Things like non-combatant evacuation operations, meaning probably the most probable that we would be called upon, right? Look at Afghanistan botched pullout, Abbey Gate, right? That was supposed to be a non-combatant evacuation operation, which obviously turned out to be completely the opposite. Um, so there's that hostage rescue stuff, which most likely everybody knows we would never ever get that mission. However, we did train for it. We did understand what it meant to take those types of shots, and we were trained to that standard at our urban sniper course. So we learned how to do all of these things, shooting up close inside 300 yards, understanding what your dope is inside 300 yards, shooting through glass and barriers, understanding what that all works, or how that all works, what bullets do what. We were doing this stuff in 1999, 1990, yeah, 99 to 2000 is when I was first exposed to it, and we were meticulously documenting our experiences. And now, granted, our bullet composition was less than desirable back then. However, we were able to see that, yeah, man, this is kind of sketchy. This is very, very unpredictable when we shoot through glass. And we knew that if we had to shoot through glass, that, hey, man, if that target's anywhere, past a few feet behind that glass, it might not be a viable option. So, a lot of law enforcement departments in the Southern California area understood that that was the curriculum that we had at the Urban Sniper course, as well as applying all of those skills on a practical aspect at the Urban Reconnaissance and Surveillance course. Understanding how difficult it is to get yourself and your equipment into an area of operations, depending on the permissibility of the environment, right? We have, a permissible environment, which basically allows you to move about freely. The risk of compromise is not going to cause your team serious bodily harm or death. Then we have semi-permissive environments where compromise is most likely mission failure, and you run a risk of getting into a direct conflict with the enemy. And then finally, a non-permissive environment being, hey, compromise is immediate failure, and we're going to have an immediate engagement with the enemy. And that's obviously not where we want to be as a reconnaissance asset. So all of those things like close target reconnaissance, understanding your bullet's trajectory at close ranges, we've been exposed to all that. Now, not every sniper is. There are a lot of snipers out there that don't get a chance to go through that level of training. And when they do go out there and start to train law enforcement officers, they revert back to what they do know, which is Not applicable. Absolutely not applicable. If you're going to go out there and you're going to teach a law enforcement sniper how to use that abomination of a reticle called the Tremor 3, yeah, you don't belong anywhere near training a law enforcement sniper because you don't understand what they do and you don't understand their mission. So I think that we have a lot more parallels than we think. However, where I'm coming from is that I'm here to progress the craft and progress the trade, and I'm here to do that without shying away or cowering from making statements that might inflame other people's egos, because I don't really care about that stuff. What I care about is making sure that dudes have exactly what they need to go do their job and to do it very, very effectively. And that is a holistic approach when it comes to being a sniper, whether it be a law enforcement dude or a military dude. Um, I'll say it again. The majority of my combat deployment was done doing area and route and zone reconnaissance missions, as well as a lot of close target reconnaissance and operating well inside sometimes 100 yards of the objective and providing overwatch for raids, providing overwatches for human intelligence interactions, all of those different things we all have experience doing. And so that experience matters. And if we can pass that on to law enforcement guys to say, hey, man, these are the lessons learned that we took away from this experience, you can definitely apply that to what you do. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. Okay. So that's where I'm at with this. You know what? Like I said, man, at the end of the day, you made me who I am today in this industry, potentially being a thorn in your side. So um, that's just it. And I'm not going to stop. We're just going to keep going forward and we're going to keep progressing this and giving these guys the information that they need to be successful and to evolve themselves, because we should be evolving with every single shot that we take. Right. So, that's that. We're off that topic now. We're going to get into some of the gear that I've been using and why. And some of you guys have probably seen some significant changes in the equipment that I've been using lately. And that is a good thing. And the reason that it's a good thing is that it is, again, evolution. And I'm I'm rapidly moving to a point where the whole sponsored shooter thing, it kind of sucks. And it's just one of those things that really ends up not ending well for at least somebody. And if you're out there doing that thing and that's it, like that's what you do, that's cool. I'm not passing judgment on anybody. However, for me, in the space that I occupy as an educator, I believe that I really have to be able to remain completely impartial and to use a bunch of different equipment and see what it is, how it works, who's doing things better than who, and making sure that I'm delivering that information to you guys. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. And so, all of the equipment that I'm going to use is all going to come from my desire to use it, because I want to use what I believe to be is the best product out there or the best tool out there. All right. So get that out of the way. First thing that I want to talk to you guys about is these guys, the Vector X's. Um, they've been out for a while, and I wanted to make sure, as with everything, man, I don't want to just do I don't want to do just like an off the cuff review and say, oh, I got these pair of binos and I'm going to take them to the range like twice and then I'm going to make a YouTube video about them. That's not my style. That's not my jam. I want to make sure that I understand this piece of equipment in its entirety, how it works, the nuances. So that way, when I do talk to you guys about it, it's real. I've used it and I know it inside and out. And so I can definitely say that with 100% certainty with regard to the Vector X's. I've been using them all through the summer into the hunting season, and now we're getting close to winter. But I have an entire slew of videos coming on the Vector X's. The binoculars themselves, all of the functionality of them, how the user interface works, how the app works, how to navigate all the heads up display screens, and some of the really, really cool features that come with using the Vector X and the app it has, as well as the integrations with the binoculars, such as, simple kestrels, what everybody knows. And then like this guy, this Calypso wind meter, this thing is really, really cool. So expect those videos coming out here pretty shortly, guys. And we're going to have a complete library of instructional videos on our YouTube channel, as well as inside the Modern Day Rifleman Network. So be looking for that here shortly. Now, moving on to some rifle components. You guys saw me use the MDT Sporting Goods HNT 26 folding chassis this hunting season. And I went to this for a couple of different reasons. Number one, I wanted to lower the weight on my existing hunting rigs. And number two, I wanted the ability to have a folding stock in that lighter weight capacity or lighter weight package. I didn't really want to have a suppressed barrel, up above the top of my rucksack, bushwhacking, and then having the buttstock hang low. It kind of like it hits me in the back of my thigh, and it's just kind of it's an annoyance. And I wanted to have a folder. We're also going to start doing some jumps, and having a folding stock is really trick for jumping and keeping gear manageable and low profile. So that's one of the reasons that I went to it. Now, my experience with that with the Hunt 26, I was instantaneously impressed. I was able to shoot my 7 PRC and that rifle now in the Hunt 26 with a Leupold Mark 5 on it, and a suppressor. It weighs in just shy of 10 pounds, like 9.8 pounds. Um, and even in that lightweight package from the prone position, I could shoot a target at 400 yards and watch the bullet hit the target with a 7 PRC shooting 180 grain bullets. Now, I was not able to do that with regularity with the previous stock that I was shooting, which was the KRG X-Ray. And the thing that I'm going to say is that the rigidity between those two stocks is dramatically different. Um, it's almost as if you can feel things flex. Whereas with the Hunt 26, it's very rigid and the recoil impulse is very flat. And you feel like all of that recoil energy is just driving straight back to you in a line right through a real fine point in the butt pad of the stock itself. So I'm going to keep shooting that, and I'm going to do a comparison video this winter. I've just got so many different irons in the fire right now. I'm trying to manage them all. So what I'd like to do is just put some trigger cam footage for comparison, so that way you guys can see the difference in recoil impulse. Same thing, everything, same barreled action, same suppressor, same bullet, just switching from one stock to another one. So that way you guys can see for yourselves what the recoil impulse looks like. It was super nice carrying a folding stock and dropping a couple of pounds. It was very, very noticeable, especially just walking around with the rifle. And I also wanted to make sure that whatever change that I made to the rifle, that I still had to be able to see where my bullet splashed to a certain degree of range depth, right? So shooting a 7 PRC that weighs less than 10 pounds from a tripod, from like a standing or a high kneeling position, yeah, you're still going to have some recoil management struggles with that, but everybody's going to. Um, that's just something that you're going to have to deal with. But from the prone position is where I can evaluate this and say that there is a definitive advantage. So uh, the next rifle part and or brand that you guys have probably seen me running is Accuracy International. And I'm going to begin to run Accuracy International for 90% of what I do with a bolt action rifle. The only exception to that is hunting rifles, because Accuracy International is a little bit on the heavy side when it comes to their system. However, they're not built as a hunting rifle. They were built to be the finest sniper weapon system ever designed on the planet. And I fully believe that they have done that. I've been exposed to Action International for a really long time. I met Tom Irwin, who is now the owner of Accuracy International, way back in 2000, 2001 timeframe, when he was visiting 1st Marine Division Scout Sniper School as a sales representative, and he would bring rifles over to classes and give demonstrations. He would do things like change the barrel out, shoot a group, take the barrel off, put the barrel back on, shoot a group. He would, kick the rifle over, basically abuse it to the point where us as Marine infantrymen and then snipers, we would look at that and be like, well, okay, well, that could happen to your rifle. Obviously we don't want that to have happen to your rifle. But the fact that we could see that rifle take the abuse that it took and still withhold and retain zero. Now, granted, the optic is in there as well. And he did a lot of these demonstrations with Schmidt and Benders, which were a far cry from our loopholes, or our far cry from our loopholes, from our unerdals. I mean, those old scopes, if you got them zeroed and you breathed on them wrong, you would lose your zero. So we would have, you know, these huge eye-opening experiences when Tom would come down and give demonstrations on the capabilities of the system. And a lot of people would be like, well, why haven't you been shooting Action International from the get-go? Well, number one, I was poor. So, and when I got into this as a professional, I had a baby. I was, you know, living in a really small home, and I was on one single income, and I didn't really have a whole lot of money. And the relationships that I had were with custom gun builders, and those custom gun builders were gracious enough to me to help me out at a really low cost, something that was affordable to me that I could get into the game with. And I just maintained those relationships ever since. And now moving into a more professional aspect of this line of work, there's only one tool for the job as far as I'm concerned, and that is Accuracy International. The other things with Accuracy International is they've developed over the past or through the past is a much more modernized approach to the geometry and construction of a modern precision rifle. Some of the things that we're looking for out there that were kind of difficult to get up until now with what we see with the ATX and the ATX Charlie, as well as the AXSR, was that lower bore height, a better interface with the forend of the rifle for shooting it off of bags and various supports and things like tripods, as well as being able to shoot it from, you know, traditional alternate sling shooting positions because it is a sniper's rifle. That's what it was designed for. So I'm super stoked for that. I've got my first AI coming, and it is going to be an ATX Charlie, and that'll be in hand probably first couple weeks of December after I get back from Arizona. So super stoked for that. And yeah, I'm going to give you guys a bunch of information. Not that you guys need to know a bunch of information about Action International. However, the new ATX Charlie, it's a completely redesigned bolt. The bolt lift issues with the weight of the bolt lift have been taken care of. And there's some geometry changes inside the bolt that make it a little bit more efficient. And you know, it's an AI, man. They just shoot. Every single one of them shoots, and they are robust and resilient. And they don't need to be bedded. They don't need anything, right? So it's just a true turnkey solution, and you can configure them for a bunch of different stuff. I'm going to shoot one of them for the NRL Hunter season. I'm going to try to focus my efforts more to NRL Hunter because it's, I think, more applicable to what the skills that I use my rifle for nowadays. And there's some other things that I'm going to be testing out this year with NRL Hunter that I think you guys are going to find interesting anyways. So there's that. Next thing that I'm looking at here is this guy. This is the Abelco theorem. Actually, this one's the S. This is the theorem right here. Okay. So I've been shooting these guys. No, I'm not cheating on Thunderbeast. They're still friends. Everybody's friends about shit. Just listen. So this Abelco theorem, badass can, titanium, and it comes with interchangeable end caps or thread ends. So that way you can use the same can on multiple different threads. You can just unscrew this. And on this model here, you guys can see I have a muzzle brake attachment, not unlike Thunderbeast's RR version. And I've got a couple of those cans on the way to me. The boys over at Abelco, my man Serge he's a super good shooter, really, really nice guy out of Southern California. He shoots out of San Diego. And he was like, hey man, you should probably look at these things. I'm like, okay, I'll have a look at them. So the muzzle brake here screws out from the end cap, and you can replace your end caps with enclosed end caps, vented end caps, and then you can also adjust the caliber dimension for each end cap, which is kind of cool. Now, with this muzzle brake here, this is insane. The amount of recoil reduction that's coming from this guy is madness. Okay. So I just shot this thing down in Virginia with a 16.5-inch ATX LE rifle, shooting 178 grain 308 bullets out of it. I was able to watch my splash from a barricade at 400 yards. That's really, really hard to do with a 308 shooting and a rifle that small and that light. The amount of recoil reduction that came from this thing is insane. So I'm really excited to put this on my competition rifle to see how it reduces the recoil of a BRA and um, and then compare it to some other suppressors that offer the same kind of capability. So that way, you guys can make your own choices. And I mean, sometimes these things could look like Chevy, Ford, Dodge when it comes to performance, because everybody's going to probably try to get into this mix of, recoil reduction with a suppressor. So that's where I'm at with that, and expect more from to s- expect to see more from me on that stuff. I can't talk. Okay. Um, Various hunting bits, some things like Mountain Gear New Zealand. I tried out their axe this year. I tried out their bipod, their ultralight bipod. It's super badass for hunting. Um, let's see, what else? Some game bags. I bought some Argali game bags, and then Stone Glacier came out with their game bags right away or right after that. But I'll try those out. Some new Stone Glacier clothing, but pretty much everything of my hunting kit has remained the same, with the exception of a couple of little accessories here and there. But most notably, the Mountain Gear New Zealand stuff, which is awesome. I'm going to do a little bit more review on all of that stuff individually for the YouTube channel coming up. So some other things. Um, Another topic of discussion that is funny. It's actually really, really hilarious. And it is this whole rock slide scope drop test. I was exposed to it not too long ago. And I remember watching it going, what are you guys doing? Why are you doing that? That's ridiculous. Stop doing that. Stop dropping your rifle to see if it's going to lose zero. And I ran this through a couple of other guys that I know in the industry that are subject matter experts, not only with rifles themselves, from being and having a background as a custom gun builder, moving into a law enforcement professional, using weapons more as tools, and then as a hunting guide, and now as an editor for a magazine. Right, that he does nothing but shoot rifles. And then I also have a really close friend of mine who works for an optics company. It's Loophole. I'm not going to lie to you guys. His name is Michael Bachellieri, and he has worked for Loophole for 14 years now, and he is an optics madman when it comes to his knowledge. Like, he's a mad scientist. He knows a lot about optics, and his entire job at Loophole is to talk to you about optics. He runs the government training side of things, and Michael has put together this presentation that is absolutely phenomenal. I bet you it's, I mean, if you sit through the whole thing, it's a good full day. It's about 6 hours worth of instruction. And the stuff that he goes through is not specific to Loophole. That's one of the things that he makes very, very clear at the beginning of the presentation, is that, like, look, this is Loophole branded. I get that. But we're talking about optics in general. We're talking about optical systems. We're talking about the real aspects of light transmission, the coatings on lenses, how the optic works mechanically, and all of the things that go into building one. It is an incredible seminar, and I've sat through it like 9 times now over the years. And every time I sit through it, I learn something new. And Michael just has a real awesome way of using a lot of anecdotes and a lot of life experiences to solidify some of these concepts. So if you have the opportunity to sit through his seminar, we did bring him into the Modern Day Rifleman Network in the Advantage program. We're going to be bringing him back in 2025 because he's just an awesome resource for that stuff. And I ran this by my Michael, and I was like, I see a lot of problems with the validity of a test like this. What do you think? And Michael's opinion was very, very similar to mine. He said that's ridiculous. Now the thought process is that everybody wants to know, is my scope going to lose zero? I don't know. It could. It very well could lose zero. And the scenarios that are being used as to what's going to happen when you lose your zero, Well, most of it's in a hunting context. I had a horse wreck. I fell down a mountain. I whacked my rifle on the side of a tree while I was, backpacking into my spot. You name it, right? Whatever. The fact of the matter is that if any of those things happen, you should be able to check your zero. You should be able to stop and say, you know what, man, I'm going to go find a rock. I'm going to go check my zero on rocks. People do that all the time. It doesn't spook animals. You're in a situation where you probably can't shoot anyways, because if you have that doubt, which you absolutely should, any type of impact to your optic or to your rifle has the propensity to shift things around. Now, are there things that we can do to prevent that from happening? Yes, absolutely. But there are way too many factors to be able to single out one or two drops or however many drops you want to do it. There is nothing scientific to that method whatsoever, because you would have to do things, each individual component, over 100 times in each of those different scenarios in order for that to be truly valid, which is not practical. Um, the next number, I lost track of that, but what I'm trying to get across to you guys is that if your rifle receives an impact and you have a question as to whether or not it's going to put a bullet where you need it to, you need to check your zero. There's nothing wrong with that. We did it overseas on combat deployments all the time. Hey man, I'm going to check my zero, right? The rifle was in a 5 ton. Um, I'm going to check my zero on a rock because I fell, or, my rifle hit something, right? Check your zero. I know some guys just shoot rocks periodically on as they're moving. See where their zero is. You guys know, especially with suppressed fire, that it's not going to spook animals out. It's not going to blow animals out of a drainage. They don't understand what it is. Now, that's not saying that I condone like going out there and just blasting stuff all the time. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there is a time and place to check your zero, and you can do that. But there are too many factors involved with being able to drop a scope in a rifle configuration. We have a barrel to an action, we have a barreled action to a stock, then we have a scope mount sometimes to the receiver, and if it's not the scope mount to the receiver, then we still have the rings to worry about. Not only that, most scopes are not designed and engineered to withstand side impacts, as well as most scope mounts aren't designed to withstand side impacts. This is not what they're engineered for. They're engineered to solve the solution of recoil, which is a rearward force. So this whole thing about, dropping your rifle and saying one scope is better or worse than the other when it comes to drop testing, just it's not a scientifically viable way of saying, hey, this scope is better than the other one. I've seen $4,000 scopes fail. I've seen $400 scopes fail, and everything in between. So the fact of the matter is number one, take care of your equipment. You shouldn't be using your equipment as a walking stick. You shouldn't be using your equipment as something to help you get up a hill or whatever else it is. Protect your rifle. Protect your equipment. In order for you to have success on that hunt, that thing needs to work. So therefore, it's your job to protect it. If something does happen to it, be familiar enough with your equipment that you understand how it all works, understand how it's assembled. Shoot it well enough and or often enough that you're familiar with any nuances or any little tweaks or quirks that system has. And number 3, the last and foremost, your zero is not shifting because you're hitting your rifle. Your zero is shifting because you don't know how to shoot it. And I'd be willing to place a significant wager on that. If you're not shooting that rifle often, and what I mean often is I don't know, if you're not touching it every day, number one, you're wrong. And if you're not touching your rifle every day with dry fire and making sure that you're a fundamentally sound shooter, and you're telling me that your scope lost zero because, it took a little bit of a whack on the side of your pack, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it at all. Your zero can shift around and wander around on you from simply fundamentals of marksmanship, understanding how you approach that rifle, how you address it, how you hold it, the pressures that you put into it, and how you manipulate the trigger. Where is your mindset at when you manipulate the trigger? What are you thinking about? If you're, especially with lightweight hunting rifles. Now, if we're talking about like a 25-pound dasher, then no, you can pretty much cut cartwheels behind that thing and it's going to put bullets through the same hole. But if we're talking about like a 10, 11, 12-pound hunting rifle, not buying it, man. I'm not buying it at all. You probably are not shooting that rifle nearly enough for you to be able to see what your zero is and what it isn't. So you got to shoot your rifle. You got to understand it. You got to learn it, and you have to know it inside and out. And that does not involve throwing it on the ground to see if your zero is going to shift. Your zero is going to shift from you, not the mechanics of the scope. So sorry, man. It is what it is. All right, moving on here. Black Friday, man, it's coming up. We by the time this thing airs, Black Friday, it is coming. So we have all of our master classes at 50% off. Um, we do this every year at Black Friday. We talked about this earlier, right? In the part that we discussed our modern precision rifle class and the success that a student experienced as a result of being exposed to the information before he showed up, which is good. Um, there's something to be said for that. So our master classes are really well known for being extremely comprehensive, very detailed, and of the highest quality. And I take that pretty seriously. I take it really seriously because it's lowering your barrier for entry into getting good, solid training. And I know you guys want to invest in yourselves. I know you want to invest in your equipment and you want to take advantage of these Black Friday sales, but also understand that investing in training is going to pay off in dividends instead of investing in all the nuances of gear. You know, I saw a guy that showed up to a modern precision rifle class and man, he had every gadget whiz bang thing on that competition rifle. New shooter, didn't understand how to use most of it. And he had zero bandwidth to be able to use any of it other than his trigger finger and his reticle. That's it. And so the levels and the ache and the red dots and all of the blinking lights and all the things like that, timers and dope boards and all that stuff. If you don't have the bandwidth to be able to use that, if you don't have the mental bandwidth to be able to use that stuff, take it off your gun. Just take it off because it's a distraction. You're not there yet. And so committing yourself to getting good training and building those neural pathways from the ground up is where you need to be. And that's what those master classes are going to give you. So on top of the master classes at 50% off, we're also going to be giving you guys new threads at 15% off and free shipping, right? So that's coming. We have some new hoodies. We got the green with the new logo. We got black with the new logo, and we changed it up, evolve with every shot, because that's exactly what we should be doing. We're going to have our sun hoodies, both modern day rifleman version as well as the modern day sniper version, and all of our t-shirts and our dope cards. You guys are going to be starting to see some new stuff coming in the next year or so. We're going to be start working on some cool projects and kind of diversifying modern day sniper a little bit. You're going to see some new stuff coming from us. So with that said, Black Friday, we got the new merch coming. Now let's talk about the upcoming schedule. We have some really, really cool stuff coming for you guys. I know we're working on it, and I know we've been not diligent about getting the schedule out. However, we are going to have some new locations. We're going to be training at the Nail Spring Ranch down in Southern Oregon, just outside of Klamath Falls. We did a couple of classes there last year, and man, this place is going to be awesome. The range is world class. The lodge is world class. You're going to eat 5-star meals and you're going to have 5-star accommodations, and everything is on site. We got everything from field shooting to known distance shooting out to a mile. And we have angles, we have small targets, we got big targets. We've got square bays that go to 300 yards. We're going to be doing a lot of law enforcement sniper packages there because it's a great place to do it. Fully appropriated gym. You got it, man. Team room, AV equipment, all of it. And the amount of money that is going to be charged for this is insanely low. So look for that stuff coming. That's going to be down at the Nail Spring Ranch. We're going to be going up to Alaska this year. We're going to be going back to Texas sometime maybe late 25 into 26. Just the way the schedule's working and the deer season's down there. Wyoming, there's a badass ranch in Wyoming that would like us to come out and teach. And we've got a bunch of international stuff coming. We're going back to the United Kingdom in June. And the partner that we're going to have for that is going to be pretty awesome as well. So, you guys should start to look for the schedule to be officially published within the next week or so as we get dates going. And I know you guys need the time to plan your vacations. So, my bad. We're working on it. We just have a ton of irons in the fire. So, thank you for your patience. The other thing that we got gaining steam out there, guys, is our law enforcement sniper program. That law enforcement sniper skills clinic, we are starting to turn those classes out on a regular basis. And it won't be long until we're doing these 2 a month, if not more. My man Landon Jones is over there heading that up. And if you guys are a law enforcement agency out there and you're looking to host a class with us, make sure that you reach out to us at info@moderndaysniper.com. I'm going to forward that right to Landon and get you guys on the schedule because it's filling up pretty quick. So there's that going on as well. And for to wrap this all up, future planning, we have a new push coming for Modern Day Rifleman Advantage, which is our subscription service, and we also have a big push coming for Modern Day Sniper Monthly, which is something that really, really shamefully did not derive a whole lot of attention to. The direction of the company was going in a direction that that we needed to bring it back into where our roots were, which was teaching and training snipers. And so Modern Day Sniper Monthly is coming, and there's going to be all kinds of exclusive content in there specifically for professional snipers that you're not going to get anywhere else. We got a ton of awesome guest speakers that are going to come in there, and our goal is to really blow that thing up and to show you guys what you're all missing out on from the professional side of the house and give you a home to go get it and to satiate that need for knowledge. So that's what we got going on, guys. This was our very first kind of single podcast episode. I've done a couple of them, but not video. This was kind of weird just looking at the camera, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you are listening to the episode, thank you for listening. And we're going to wrap this up by saying, hey, man, everything that we do, we need to make sure that we're being absolutely true to ourselves. We have to remain present for every single moment where we're shooting our rifles, as well as any time that we're training. And we need to make sure that we are going to evolve with every single shot that we take. We should be learning as much from our misses as we do from our hits, and vice versa. Don't sit there and dwell on all the misses. Focus on your wins too, and make sure that you're looking at this and having fun every time you go out and shoot. So thanks for listening, guys. We'll talk to you again with the next episode coming up here shortly. And we're going to bring you guys some badass guests coming in 2025 and a whole new fresh look for Modern Day Sniper and Modern Day Rifleman. So thanks, guys. Take it easy and enjoy the holidays.